it seems to me that everything with this shutdown and Obamacare and the debt ceiling and all this nonsense is about 2016, and it's all the GOP guys jockeying for position. And I hate sort of talking about this stuff too much because it's years from now, and then it stops us from dealing with things that we should be talking about now. However, Howard Feynman wrote a really good piece in HuffPost that talked about how they're all just angling themselves to become the nominee in 2016 and how that's going to work through the primary process and all that. And he talked obviously about Ted Cruz, who's become like the hero of the Tea Party, which started with his 21-hour filibuster that wasn't really a filibuster. Rand Paul gets the libertarian wing. Marco Rubio, he had that immigration bill that was sort of DOA. Paul Ryan's obviously going to be in the mix because of his PDX 90 abs. And then Christie, of course, who's not in Congress right now, so he may be the winner here because he doesn't even have to get in the fray of this whole big mess. So again, I don't really like getting into this stuff, but we sort of got to talk about it because it gives context to why everything's so broken. Because 3 years before the election, these guys are doing things to position themselves. So if we ignore it, it's still happening, right?
Yeah. I may not know a lot about politics, but I know a lot about being broken.
So as a broken person, are you constantly using things for years later to manipulate the future as they are?
I try to fix myself. I try to. I take a lot of advice from people.
Yeah.
I never go about it on my own. That's for sure.
Yeah. So Ted Cruz wouldn't like you because he's a rebel. He's a loner.
Yeah.
But you like teamates.
I do.
Interesting.
I like to work together.
Yeah.
Love and peace, guys.
Ben, what do you think?
I think that I'm with you that the mainstream media makes an enormous mistake and does a disservice to covering important issues when they cover everything in a horse race. It doesn't matter what you say, it only matters what you say and how it relates. And I engage in it. I love it. I love the horse race. But
I secretly love it. But
right, but not at the. But it shouldn't come at the expense of talking about like how these people would govern and what that would mean.
Yeah.
The difference here is that in order to cover accurately what's happening in Washington now, you have to cover this part of it because everything these guys are doing has nothing to do with what they accomplish now, since all of them actually acknowledge we can't defund Obamacare, and eventually we're going to have to start the government back up and we're going to have to pay everybody back.
Right. Well, I'm pretty sure everyone's saying that except for Ted Cruz. I feel like he still thinks he can not fund it and win this thing.
I don't think
somehow.
so. I don't. But either way, since I can't peer into the soul of a crazy person, right? But what he mostly wants was to be front and center and the voice of this sort of radical, I hate government. I hate the people who run government. I hate the things the government does. Yeah. And he worked. He's at 20%. They're all like all the guys you mentioned are between 10 and 20% in the latest polls. But Ted Cruz is a guy who got elected to the Senate like Wednesday. And now all of a sudden, in a straw poll, he actually leads among Republicans. That's what he wanted. So you have to talk about it.
Yeah. Is part of the problem here that somehow this stuff is juicier because these guys are all such characters. I feel like they're all cartoon characters. Rand Paul's hair, the size of Christie, like they're all sort of cartoon characters. And that's more exciting than talking about like the minutia of a bill, isn't it? Like you can just make fun of them and that keeps it in the discussion.
It makes it fun for people that aren't really interested in politics.
Right.
But we can live tweet speeches and events, and it's fun for everyone.
Yeah. Is that part of the problem, though? Is that, I mean, I do it all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that's fun. I do, too.
Yeah.
And I have no idea what I'm talking about. I just like to tweet, so it's super fun. But it is a problem.
Yeah. Is that part of the problem? Because the policy stuff is just not the stuff that gets people talking. We could be sitting here breaking down some policy, and we'd get 6 views.
They take advantage of the fact that the press too, and there are a lot, obviously, your show, Dave, and when we do the Young Turks, and all these shows are dependent on good reporters doing their jobs. So we have information to talk about. So there are great reporters out there. But as a whole, they don't take a lot of time explaining stuff because they don't really know. And it's hard to get at. I mean, the Affordable Care Act is confusing, right? And it's difficult. And of course, reporting on what's wrong with the Affordable Care Act now is pointless. We don't know what's wrong with it or what's right with it. It's a giant, huge bill, and it needs a year to breathe. And then obviously, like Social Security, and you go in and you fix the problems. But that requires...
But no, there's a glitch, so we have to shut down the whole thing.
And that doesn't... There's nothing about what I just said that works in a 24-hour news cycle, let alone, forget 24 hours, a 4-hour news cycle on cable and the internet. It's just so... and these guys know that. So they make a big speech, they make a big proclamation, they make sort of definitive points, the press covers it, and they get their way.
Yeah. Well, you know, we talk about this all the time here about how the mainstream media is so untrustworthy. I was watching Fox News the other day, and they were like, you know, look at the system, the Obamacare system. The computers are crashing because it's so inept and glitchy and blah, blah, blah. Literally turn to MSNBC. They're showing the same screen of the glitches, and they're saying it's because too many people were on there. So it's over, you know, because it's too good. So it's overloading the servers. And it's like, I'm pretty sure you're both lying. I don't know what's going on CNN. They're just showing Anderson's hair. But like, you know, like, there's just nobody.
What there actually is, like, who knows what's right and what's wrong?
Yeah, but I mean, I'd actually,
No
you know, again, of course I come at it with bias, but I'm pretty sure it's a lot closer to the MSNBC thing, because when you offer people the chance to get health care, they're going to think, yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Especially every single one of those people who has a child.
Yeah.
And they'll think, the first day, what I'm going to do, I'm going to sign on. I'm going to make sure that my family has health care.
Yeah.
So I would, you know.
There you heard it. Ben trusts MSNBC slightly more than he trusts Fox News. Hey guys, the Rubin Report is brought to you by Coupon.com. You can get up to 75% off pet toys, chews, all kinds of treats, and more. The link is right down below. Click it and use code RR for 20% off your first purchase.